Hurricane Helene was the most impactful storm we've ever seen at Duke Energy. It hit every one of our states. So we were preparing for Florida that took the direct hit, and then it came up the coast to South Carolina, North Carolina, eventually got to Kentucky, Ohio, and Indiana. But the damage that we saw in the western part of the Carolinas was something that we didn't expect. We saw it raining for a week. If you remember, it rained the entire week before that, and the land was saturated, the lakes were full. Our weather forecasting showed that we were going to have impacts, we were going to get rain, but then it started piling up faster and faster, and we started to see that this is going to be different. We were worried about flooding damage. As you know, we manage a lot of the dams on the Catawba River as well as the Pigeon River and the Nantahala River. So we started seeing those levels increases. Our teams did an amazing job of managing the gates to keep flooding to a minimum as best we could and to protect the dams themselves. So we started seeing late that first day as things were coming in the western part of the state that this was going to be different, that the flooding was going to be historic, levels that we've never seen before. In Asheville is 18 feet. What I kind of say is there's like an 18-foot tsunami coming down the valley there, wiping out infrastructure, wiping out homes. Very impactful. It's a foot higher than the 1916 historical storm that Asheville experienced. I grew up in Asheville.
Right.
And to see places like where I set up my bank account when I was 5 years old, next door to where my dad worked in Biltmore Village, completely destroyed, covered in mud, was pretty impactful to me. And just to see the businesses that were ruined was very impactful. So our team jumped into action to do the best they could and get people back, get their power back, because that's what gets them to start building their lives back together in this traumatic experience that they have.
Did you go in with the first crews?
I got there a few days later to check on the crews and provide support for them and just see the damage for myself. And it was amazing to see what I've seen on TV and in the pictures that the crews were sending me. Didn't do it justice to what you saw in the field with my own eyes. Our right-of-ways where our poles sit were completely wiped out. Not just the poles, but the dirt that the poles sit in were completely gone, and now we're part of the Swananoa Riverbank. So the damage was something that we never expected to see in the mountains of North Carolina. And in upstate South Carolina had a lot of damage from the saturated land. A lot of trees came down, taking down our infrastructure. So we were prepared for the storm, but we had to make a lot of adjustments during the storm because of the flooding and the impacts that we saw.
John, question?
So you mentioned just a moment ago power outages. You had to get those power outages taken care of. Lots of people think about not just the hurricane season that we just went through, but now we're about to go into ice storm season in the Carolinas. So resiliency of the grid has always been a big concern. What challenges do you face with that? Does the aftermath of Hurricane Helene suggest anything to Duke Energy about what to do about the resiliency of the grid?
Yeah, we've been working on resiliency and reliability for many years because we've seen storms be more impactful. They come more frequently. They're stronger. The flooding that we've seen both on the coast, and you mentioned earlier about folks that are still being impacted from the 2015 and 2018 storms, as well as what we saw from wind damage has been more in the previous years than in the past. So we've been using data analytics to really hone in on what parts are more vulnerable in our system. So you imagine the coasts. So we've done a lot of hardening work where we replaced wooden poles with steel and concrete poles on the coasts, Florida in particular, but also on the coast of the Carolinas. Flooding has become more and more pronounced. So on the coast, we've built walls around our substations that have flood protection now. But we didn't anticipate what we saw in the Carolinas. So we're rethinking our plans because you didn't anticipate that kind of damage. Our models would never predict that. So we're going back and rethinking what we need to do there to make those systems more resilient and hardened. We may look at things that we didn't think about before, better flood protection, better concrete poles, steel poles up there as well.